Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Lancing with myself, a YouTube show where I take 5 minutes every week on a Tuesday to talk about game design and being a creative, especially when you're low on spoons and low on cash. This week, I want to talk about when is a game finished? What does a game being finished mean? Leonardo da Vinci famously said, or at least supposedly said, art is never finished, only abandoned. That's definitely true about game design. There is only so much you can do before you have to put it out into the world and let it go. But it's an interesting question. What makes a game finished? What state does a game get to before it is finished? What state do you go, yes, I've designed a game? At the Game Design Masterclass, we like to talk about that a game is finished when it is playable by somebody else, when it has a start, a middle, and an end, when it can be set up, played, and then put away without you being there to play it, and someone can have an experience with it. Now, does that mean it's a good game? Not necessarily, no, but it is a finished game. It is a complete game. It is a physical thing that you can give away, that can be played with without you present, and experienced without you present, and that is really what makes a game something complete. I just recently created this little thing. It's got rules, it's got counters, it's got 18 cards. It is a complete game. I can hand this to someone and they can play it. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is that it's important to know when a game is finished. And as I said, it's not always an easy thing to tell. But it's worth sort of sitting back and go, yeah, okay, I finished that. Now, obviously, there are things I can do to make this better. It needs to be clearer. It needs to have nicer art. It needs to be a little bit more fine-tuned. It needs to be a bit more play-tested. But sometimes they come together quite quickly, and it is complete in the sense that it is playable, and it is shareable, and therefore my work is finished. Not everything is going to take forever. A game is going to come together quickly. Sometimes a game is going to come together for years and years and years. You know, the first drafts of Relics were in 2012, and here we are 7 years later, whereas that took me about a week to get from the very first idea to something that I printed, sleeved, put counters in, put it in a bag, gave it to someone, did some testing online, clarified things, got it together. Everything works at different paces and different speeds, and complete is a somewhat arbitrary term. Now, as I say, there are always things you can add. You can always be making games clearer, you can make them sharper, you can make them more professional, but we shouldn't see published as a marker. That's really the key here. A game isn't finished when it's published. That is just another thing that can happen to a game. And we shouldn't see that as the ultimate goal. We have a very strange relationship with games sometimes, that we don't see them like other art forms. We demand that until they are published that they don't really exist. But if you wrote a poem, if you wrote a story, if you drew a picture, if you painted a painting, you would say at some point, yeah, this is finished. I've covered the paper, I've created a story, I've told what I want to do, I've got from the start through the middle to the end, and I've written it down and I can give it to someone else to read, and it is therefore finished. It might need a bit more proofreading, it probably could be polished up, it could be put into a book and stapled and have cover art and be put in a shop on a shelf, but it was already finished. And I think that's really important, that we think about games as art forms, and that they don't necessarily need to be professionally published, to have a fine, shiny cover, to be put on a store, to be promoted, to be chosen by a company, to have a successful Kickstarter. None of these things make a game finished. A game is finished when it's told the story you want it to tell, when it is complete and has the elements you wanted it to have, that it recreates the experiences you want it to do in other people. It makes people feel the things that you were hoping that it would make them feel. And it works as a cohesive whole. It has a start and a middle and an end, and people can play it. That makes a game complete. And that should be your goal, you know. It's very easy to get caught up in that need to prove yourself, to have a published game. But think about games like poetry. Think about games like writing a story, painting a picture. Make a finished game. Make a game that is complete, that you can hand to someone else, and they play it. And do that. Once you've handed it off, Once you've put it out into the universe and it's been played and created emotions, it's complete. And that includes playtesting to make sure that the emotions are correct. But once you've got that state and made a complete game, you can stop and you can say, yep, I'm a game designer. There's my game. It's on the shelf. It's being passed around. It's being played by people. I don't have to achieve anything more. I move on to the next game. It's always good to have a bunch of games ready, if in case you meet a publisher. But a writer writes, a painter paints, a game designer makes games. Get them to a stage where they're finished. I mean, you might get blocked, you might get stopped, but if you do, you can always go back. The point is, don't see publication as the end point, but rather finish games. Make games, finish them, share them with people, play them with people. That's all you are asked for. That is all you need to do to be a game designer. Do it, and the world will be better. That's the message for this week. See you next week. Be good, play games, pat dogs, have fun.